Hello everyone, welcome to another live session with the student tutors. I'm Phoebe and today I'll be working through some chemistry questions, GCSE chemistry questions, all to do with moles. I'll start off by doing a quick introduction of what moles is. We'll do a couple of questions. I'll give everyone to do 5 minutes to do the questions, and then I'll go through them, making sure I show you what the mark is for each question and how to get the right answer. Feel free to use the live chat, ask any questions. I'll answer all the questions in the last 5 minutes. You can pause at any time to attempt these questions yourself. Great, so what is moles? So moles just is amounts of a substance. That's all it describes. Okay. So moles also can mean moles is amounts substance. It's also a way to measure how many particles. So moles is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the 23 particles. And this is Avogadro's constant. All it states is that in each mole there are 6.02 times 10 to the 23 particles. So what is the equation for moles? Moles, as most people know it, is mass over Mr. moles. And we can draw this in a triangle. So on the bottom we times, and then on the top we divide, okay? And we'll be using this equation to help with all our other questions that we'll be doing, okay? So I'll pop that there and we can get started. So the first question we'll be doing is working out masses from equations that we've already got. So this question states, calculate the mass of magnesium oxide made by burning 6 grams of magnesium. So they've given us the equation and we're going to have to use this to work out the mass of magnesium oxide, okay? So this question, we can break it down into 3 steps. I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes just to try and answer the question themselves, and then I'm going to go through it after. Okay, so okay, I'm going to go over the question now. If anyone would like a bit more time, just pause the live, complete the question in your own time, and then come back and you'll be able to go back and see the answer. Okay, so I'm going to split this question up into 3 different stages because this question would usually be worth 3 marks. The first thing we need to do is work out the moles of magnesium. So the first thing we need to do in any of these questions is work out the moles of whatever substance they want us to work out, which is the magnesium in this case. So using the triangle, we can see that moles is equal to mass divided by mR. Okay? Here we've got a mass of 6 grams, so I'm going to put 6 at the top, and the mR of magnesium is 24. So this is equal to 0.25. So we've worked out that there's 0.25 moles of magnesium. The second step we need to do is to use the ratio in the question. Okay? So here we're just talking about, in the equation, we need to look at the ratio of the substance that they've given us the mass of, which is the magnesium, and the substance that we're trying to work out, which is the magnesium oxide. In this case, we've got a 2 magnesium oxide ratio. So we've got a 2:2 ratio, which simplifies to 1:1. That means we don't need to change any of the moles that we're working with because it's in a 1:1 ratio. So that means if we have 0.25 moles of magnesium, we know that we're going to get 0.25 moles of magnesium oxide. So therefore 0.25 moles of magnesium oxide are produced. The third step in the question is to work out the mass of magnesium oxide, because the question states mass. Okay? So mass of magnesium oxide. And then we're going to use our triangle again to see how to work out mass. So mass here, we're going to use Mr. Moles. So mass is equal to mR times moles. So we know that we've got 0.25 moles of magnesium oxide, so 0.25, and the mR of magnesium oxide would be the mR of magnesium, which is 24, plus the mR of oxygen, 16. And this is going to equal 10 grams. So let's recap what the 3 steps of the question are. First thing we're going to do is work out the moles of magnesium. This is the substance that they've given us in the question. Next, we're going to use the ratio of what they've given us, and then the ratio compared to what we're trying to produce at the end. Simplify the ratio in its easiest form to then work out how many moles we have of the substance that we're trying to produce. The third step is then working out the mass. So this is what the question has asked us. So we're going to use the moles that we worked out in the ratio, times it by the mR to work out the mass. Okay? I hope everyone sort of followed that and made sense. We're going to try another question that's in a very similar style and see if we can apply this 3-step method to work out the mass. Okay? So here is our second question. So this question has given us the equation of 2 aluminium oxide, which then is broken down into 4 aluminium plus 3 oxygen. The question then states, calculate the mass of aluminium in tonnes that is produced from 51 tonnes of aluminium oxide. So again, I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes to complete the question. Try and use the 3-step method that we used in the previous question. I'll put the previous question on the screen now so you can use it in comparison, and then I'll come back and we can go through it. I'm going to move on to working out this question. If anyone needs any more time, just make sure to pause and you can come back and see if you got the right answer. Again, I'm going to be using the 3-step method that I've just gone over, working out the moles, using the ratio, and then using that to work out the mass. Okay? Great. So the first thing we need to do is work out the moles of the substance that we've been given, so which is the aluminium oxide. Okay? So first step, moles of aluminium oxide. So we can see here from our triangle that moles is equal to mass over mR. If you're ever unsure of how to use this triangle, what you do is you just cover up what you're trying to work out. So in this case, we're trying to work out moles. You cover up moles, you can see that's equal to mass over mR. Okay, so we're going to be doing mass over mR. So we've been given in the question that we've got 51 tons. And sometimes when the question states the mass is not in sort of the normal grams or kilograms, students can get perhaps a bit confused, as if they need to convert it into kilograms or grams. Just make sure to stay in the units that is given you in the question. So here we've got 51 tons, just keep it in tons, okay? So I'm going to use the mass, 51, over the MR of aluminium oxide. So the MR of aluminium and the MR of aluminium is 27, and we have 2 of those, so we're going to do 27 times by 2 plus 3 oxygens, so 16 times by 3, which is equal to 0.51. Okay, and then we're going to use the ratio. So we use the ratio of what we've been given, which is the aluminium oxide, in comparison to what we're trying to work out, the aluminium. Here we can see the ratio in the equation is 2 to 4. To simplify this, it's a 1 to 2 ratio. So we can then use the moles that we've worked out in this ratio to work out the moles of the aluminium. So we know that we have 0.51 moles of aluminium oxide. That means we're just going to times it by 2 to work out the moles of aluminium, which is 1.02. Okay. And then the third step, we're working out the mass of aluminium. Again, we're going to use the triangle, and we can see that mass, if we cover up mass, mass is equal to mR times moles. So we're going to do exact same here. The mR of aluminium is 27 times the moles, which is 1.02. And in this, you get 27.54 tons. Now, if a question doesn't state how many decimal points or significant figures to leave your answer to, a safe bet is always 3 significant figures. So in this case, 27.5 tons. To 3 significant figures. Okay? So again, make sure that you're writing the units that they've given you in the question, so making sure that you're writing tons, and if the question states grams, make sure you're writing grams, and etc. And again, if it doesn't mention how many decimal points you should leave it to, 3 significant figures is always a safe bet. Okay. If anyone has any questions, make sure you just pop them in the live chat and I'll answer them all at the end. So, we can also use moles to work out a balanced equation. So, I'm going to also give you a method of how to do this. So, our next question states that 64 grams of methanol reacts with 96 grams of oxygen to produce 88 grams of carbon dioxide and 72 grams of water. And the question states, write a balance equation. So again, I'm just going to give you 5 minutes if everyone has a go at writing the balance equation, and again, I'll give you a method on how to do that. Okay, let's go through this question. Again, if anyone's just not quite done, make sure you just pause it and then you can come back and have a look at the answers. Okay, so with these questions, the first thing to know is that they've given us masses of all the products and all the reactants. This is how we know that this question is writing a balance equation question. That's how it differentiates from the different type of questions. So the first thing that we need to do is write an unbalanced equation, okay? So we've been given methanol, reacts with oxygen, which produces carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so that's the first thing. We need to write an unbalanced equation. The second thing we do, as they've given us the masses of all the reactants and the products, we need to work out the moles of everything. Okay, so step 2. We're going to first work out the moles of methanol. So the moles of methanol, again, using our triangle here, we're going to cover moles, which is going to be mass divided by MR. So the mass given for methanol is 64 grams divided by its MR. So the MR of carbon, which is 12, you've got 4 hydrogens, so 4 times 1, which would be 4, and then oxygen is 16. So you've got 12 plus 4 plus 16. So 64 divided by 32, which is 2 moles. Next, we'll work out the moles of oxygen. So we've been given 96 grams of oxygen, and the MR of oxygen is 16 times 2, which is 32, which is 3 moles. Next, we'll work out the moles of carbon dioxide. So the mass given is 88 grams, divided by 12 for carbon, plus 32 for the 2 oxygens. So that's 88 divided by 44, which is 2. And then finally the moles for water. The mass given for water is 72, and then the MR would be 2 times 1 for the 2 hydrogens plus 16, which is equal to 72 divided by 18, which is equal to 4. So we've worked out the moles of all the reactants and the products. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to write the ratio between the reactants and the products. So in our equation we have methanol to oxygen to carbon dioxide to water, and we just plug in the numbers that we've got for the moles. So 2 to 3, 2 to 4. The main thing that we need to do in this step, I'm going to start, is to write it in its simplest form. In this equation, this is already in its simplest form, as we can't simplify it further. But for example, if you had a ratio of 4 to 2, you'd want to simplify that to 2 to 1. This is a key point where students might lose marks just because they haven't simplified the ratio, so make sure that you do that. And then the third step is to write the balanced equation. So we know that we're going to have 2 methanol plus 3 oxygen, which goes to 2 carbon dioxide plus 4 water. And this, we've worked out the molar ratio by using all the masses and all the moles to write the balanced equation. So those are the 3 points to getting the 3 marks that will be in this question. First thing, write the unbalanced equation. Next, work out the moles of all the reactants and all the products. And third thing, write the balanced equation using the molar ratio. Okay? So where students can lose marks is by just not simplifying the ratio, as I mentioned here. Okay? And to differentiate this question between the previous question is that you've been given the masses of all the reactants and all the products. Okay, great. So just as there's 2 minutes left, I will check the live chat, see if anyone's got any questions. And I hope that's made sense to everyone. Does anyone have any questions just to pop in the live chat in the last minute I can answer? Nope, I don't spot any. Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. If you want any more help or a one-to-one session, make sure that you check out the website at the student tutors and join our live streams that are happening every day at 5 p.m. We're doing science, maths, English, and lots of other different subjects. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and all our different social medias to check out when different live streams are happening. Great, so I'm Phoebe and I'll see you for next time. Thank you.